Deshaun Watson has been in the news recently, in case you haven't noticed. According to the most recent reports, it is becoming increasingly likely that Watson has played his final game as a member of the Houston Texans due to his growing frustration with the team. And honestly, who can blame him? This latest development stems from the fact that the team failed to consider or consult with the general manager candidates that he endorsed, and then he only found out that they hired Nick Caserio from social media, not the team itself. And this was just the latest in a long line of missteps by the team that would understandably frustrate anybody involved. Shall I remind you of a few? In 2017, they refused to pay left tackle Dwayne Brown, who is still playing at a high level today, and they eventually traded him and a 5th-round pick to Seattle for a 2nd and a 3rd. Vacating the left tackle position meant the team had to sell the farm for a replacement. To acquire Laramie Tunsil, the team gave up 2 first-rounders and a 2nd-round pick with some filler on both sides. On top of that, they immediately went and made him the highest-paid offensive lineman in NFL history, beating out Lane Johnson's 2nd-place number by nearly $4 million annually. At the same time, the team traded Jadeveon Clowney away for 2 backup linebackers and a 3rd-round pick, which eventually became Gary and Conley. Maybe history has proven the Texans right in not paying the man, but they still botched the trade because they only got so little in return for him because they didn't trade him until after he was unable to sign a long-term extension. Oh, also in 2019, the team acquired Duke Johnson for a 3rd-round pick, only to never even use him. Then, when everybody was calling for the team to fire head coach Bill O'Brien, they instead went and promoted him to general manager in January 2020. He promptly turned around and traded one of the most dominant wide receivers in football in DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona for just a 2nd-round pick and a washed-up running back on a huge contract. All because O'Brien supposedly didn't get along with Hopkins and didn't want to sign him to an extension. The deal looked even worse when the Texans went out a month later and acquired a worse receiver in Brandon Cooks for roughly the same compensation. O'Brien was fired after a predictable 0-4 start, and after a tumultuous 4-12 finish, we are here. I feel bad for whatever poor soul takes this coaching job. So no, after making a long story long, I don't blame Deshaun Watson whatsoever for wanting out of Houston and seemingly forcing his way out by whatever means necessary. In fact, I applaud him for standing up for himself, especially after what transpired this past season. In 2020, Deshaun Watson played the best football of his career and was a legitimate MVP candidate. It was an all-time great season, and the Texans completely wasted it by being perhaps the worst-run franchise in professional sports. Was it really an all-time great season, though? You probably assume I'm exaggerating. No quarterback on a 4-12 team can have one of those. I can assure you, however, that I am not exaggerating one bit, and Deshaun Watson's 2020 season is the ultimate example of why QB wins is not a stat. For those who primarily judge quarterbacks based off of wins, I can at least give you the alternative: box score stats. Watson finished 3rd in the NFL with a completion percentage of 70.2 in 2020. He became just the 14th passer ever to have a completion percentage of 70 or better. The only other players in that group that finished with a losing record were Derek Carr, who went 7-9 in 2019, and Sam Bradford, who went 7-8 in 2016. But Watson wasn't just dinking and dunking either. He led the entire NFL in passing yards with 4,823, good for the 25th best mark ever. Only Matthew Stafford, who also went 4-12 in 2012, had fewer than 7 wins of the 24 guys ranked ahead of Watson. Watson also consistently made winning plays, as he was tied for the 7th in the league with 33 touchdown passes, and he also avoided negative plays, as he had the 4th lowest interception percentage in football. He was 12th in QBR, which is still pretty impressive considering how heavily the statistic weighs winning. In terms of passer rating, Watson was 2nd to only the league MVP. Watson's mark of 112.4 ranks as the 16th best all time. 106 quarterbacks have put up a passer rating of 100 or more in NFL history, and Watson's mark ranks as the highest of the mere 7 players on the list who had a losing record, none of whom finished worse than 7-9. Additionally, Watson had 7 games this season with a passer rating of at least 110 points in which he lost. For comparison's sake, Tom Brady has 3 such games like that in his entire 21-year career. Watson is only 4 seasons into his career, and his 10 losses with a passer rating of 110 or higher is already the 2nd most all-time, behind only Drew Brees' 15. That's 40% of his career losses, FYI. I'd like to credit Adam Harstad for digging those last two stats up. 3 of those losses with an elite passer rating this season came against the Texans' 2 division rivals who made the playoffs. In Tennessee in October, Watson completed 75% of his passes for 335 yards and 4 touchdowns with 0 turnovers. He threw a TD pass on 4th down to give Houston a 7-point lead with under 2 minutes to go. And he never saw the ball again as his defense let Tennessee walk down the field for a game-tying score in regulation and the game winner in overtime. In Week 17, it was a similar story. 71% completion percentage, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns. Despite Watson leading a game-tying drive with just 18 seconds left, the Texans still lost in regulation thanks to the defense allowing a 52-yard Ryan Tannehill to A.J. Brown bomb. 0-2 against the division champs despite scoring 36 and 38 points against them. Down a touchdown against the Colts, Watson led the team all the way down the field in the final minute before his teammate fumbled the ball and the game away at the goal line. The sad thing is, I could be talking about either Colts game because it happened twice. Once via a bad snap from Nick Martin and once via an actual fumble by Kiki QT. But I digress. Back to the individual season Watson put up. It's not just the traditional volume box score stats where he shined either. Yes, he led the NFL in passing yards, but he was also first in yards per attempt at 8.9. But even factoring in touchdowns, interceptions, and sacks, Watson still ranked 3rd with an 8.22 adjusted net yards per attempt. This is made even more impressive due to the fact that Watson was second to only Carson Wentz with a whopping 49 sacks taken, while playing behind the 32nd ranked pass blocking offensive line per DVOA. Watson's adjusted net yards per attempt in 2020 ranks as the 29th best season ever among quarterbacks with at least 10 starts. Of the 36 seasons with a mark of at least 8, Watson's 250 winning percentage isn't only the worst, but it's also the only one below 500. When it comes to advanced analytics, Watson was also among the league's best. He was 4th in completion percentage over expectation, the more definitive accuracy statistic. Watson was also 5th in success rate and 6th in expected points added per play. For Football Outsiders' total value metric DYAR, Watson was 5th in the NFL. The same is true of their value per play metric DVOA. Finally, Watson was also 3rd in the NFL in terms of PFF grading, sandwiched between Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. You noticed that too? For most of these actually indicative metrics I just listed, it's the same 5 guys in some order. Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game, Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game, Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game, and Deshaun Watson on the trade block after a 4-12 season. Something seems out of place here, but I can't quite put a finger on it. Great QB play should lead to wins. At the very least, it should be enough to at least get you to a 500 record. But alas, not for a team as poorly run as the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson's 92.5 PFF grade is the highest ever for a quarterback who missed the playoffs. To make it even more poignant, Watson is almost 10 full points higher than the next highest graded QB on a team that finished 4-12 or worse. Everyone pour one out for Matt Ryan real quick. Similarly, Watson also had the second highest QBR of any quarterback with a losing record since 2006. Deshaun Watson's 2020 season is both one of the greatest achievements in recent sports memory and also one of the biggest travesties. He lost DeAndre Hopkins for nothing in the offseason. He lost Will Fuller mid-season. He played with the worst running game in the league. He dealt with the poorest pass blocking any quarterback had to put up with. And yet, despite the odds, he still balled out all season and became a truly elite quarterback. He made a 100-yard man out of Chad Hansen in his first game in 3 seasons, for crying out loud. They'd never think about giving MVP to a player on a team that missed the playoffs, much less one with a 4-12 record. But Watson undeniably had an MVP caliber season in 2020 that would have been properly recognized on almost any other team. I said that Watson should get out of Houston ASAP at the time of the Hopkins trade, and as the franchise has continued to spiral into nothingness since, I stand even more firmly by it. Deshaun Watson is one of the rare, truly great talents in the NFL, and it would be a shame to see more great seasons like this one go to total waste because of mismanagement at the upper levels. So please, I beg of somebody, please free Deshaun Watson.